All right, let's get the music under control here. Sorry, I'm a little late here. We are going to be starting in just a moment. Let's get the music under control. And get it under control on my side. Yeah. My apologies to those of you that have been waiting a couple extra minutes here. I had to take my dog out. He was bugging me to go out. So just a moment. We're going to get this rolling. All right, let's just roll right into this. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner for Market Madness technical analysis of the Bitcoin price here. Specifically, we're going to be looking at and discussing the monthly close and kind of what to look forward to in some of the higher term timeframes, as well as take a look at some of the lower term timeframe price action here. We are currently on a 4-hour. There is a pretty decent setup here that could be developing. There are conditions that need to be met to both the upside and downside. Let's go ahead and just check that daily close from yesterday, the close open. So the open from yesterday was at the highs there at 62,520. We had the close coming in at 61,180. So when looking at the 4 and 6 hour here, we'll get to the 6 hour in just a moment, but when looking at the 4 hour here, we do have a closing higher low. The previous higher low is technically this guy over here that came in on the 27th of February. And we have been, trading inside of this doji here on the 4 hour. And this doji actually encompasses the range pretty well if we did see a move down. So I wanted to highlight this real quick first for what to expect. If you do see Bitcoin trading back above the upper first standard deviation on the 4 hour here at around 62, that's going to be 62,740 it looks like. So we are on log scale, but on the lower term timeframes, it's going to look about the same as linear when you're zoomed in this close. So yeah, it's 62,740 or so. If Bitcoin can trade and start closing candles above there, it's not very far off the closing highs up here at just under 63,000 at 62,934. If we do start to see Bitcoin closing anywhere above the upper first, well, that area would be the next logical place to take a look at. And then we would look right back to the high here at 64,100 to the upper second standard deviation around 64,700. So just beneath the first wick high back in 2021 of the first closing and swing all-time high prior to reaccumulation and going higher. But in this case, if we did start to see Bitcoin closing back above the upper second standard deviation, we're likely looking at the $65,000 to $69,000 overhead resistance zone or historical resistance zone there by the all-time high. So I have labeled that the all-time high zone. So let's go ahead and take the daily view here and apply our horizontal support and resistance areas. And man, I really hung on to that word for a while, huh? Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So, Bitcoin from a technical standpoint, anywhere above the upper second is going to target the all-time high zone up here. So the first one that was put in 2021 at $65,000 to $69,000. So if Bitcoin does close above the upper second, it preserves the chance for Bitcoin to go up here, and then also closing above the closing all-time high on the daily is another positive sign for the bulls here that very likely at minimum the high sides get tested. We're already in and around and have tested the close open high up here. And it's just a matter of testing the swing highs into the all-time high zone. And, once Bitcoin, heads up here, whenever it does, whether it's sooner rather than later, we are likely looking at this, um, you know, pumping up and probably high volatility that may even retest, or, on the other side of that is it just moves right through it and continues on. Typically around the swing all-time highs, you will see some decent lower term time frame resistance, if not daily resistance. So just be aware that it's likely to be a very volatile area in terms of volume and swings in the order books and stuff like that. So it can sometimes be difficult to get filled if you're trying to play breakouts and stuff like that. I'm not a breakout trader, as you know. I just want you to be careful and understand what to look for. It can also be very volatile and hit your take profits very quickly. So when things really start moving, you're like, hey, I got to take profit up there, and I've got take profits higher or something like that. You'll often see that stuff get hit very quickly, very violently, and then tempt you in on the other side, much like what this 4-hour candle did back here. We had was this like I'm not even going to venture to say, this was 58 to 64. So it's a 9% range. I was almost going to call it an 8.5% range, but it's almost a 10% range there from wick to wick. Pretty violent in the lower term time frames, especially when you go down and look at that 15-minute, because it was two 15-minute candles. So it was over the course of, of 30 minutes that we saw the high put in and then the low put in. And keep in mind, this was also on volume. This high and the low came in on very high volume. So one of the more important things that I've talked to you guys about at length is understanding volume as it relates to the order book. Well, you can kind of see how this type of volume at the high here, on the green and first red candle here that was on the highs above the monthly close here, forming some pretty heavy overhead resistance or a range at the top side, and then the wick providing for a range at the bottom side. And you can even see when it came down to make this nice higher low, or on a swing basis, lower low, but higher low on a swing, didn't pass any of these two wicks. Came up to the monthly, took out the highs and broke the downtrend, and began its uptrend to retest that area. Of course, we have seen this come back into the monthly zone and get a little bit of a downtrend into the monthly zone, then some consolidation, boom, back down. Now we're in a bit of a possible uptrend if it can pass this little wick high over there. Let's get rid of this arrow and grab a new one, because it's just a pain in the butt to pull that arrow over correctly. So let's go here. Yeah, so we have a kind of a trend break. So we had this little bit of an uptrend going on the 15-minute trend break to the downside, right back into the monthly close there at around the 61.5, 61K area. Even dipped down. Did it get below? Yeah, nope, 61,062 bucks. So if it can start closing candles, 15-minute candles specifically, above around 62,520, then we would be looking at this, trying for another uptrend here on the 15-minute chart. And yeah, that's, lower term time frames look good. 12-hour expansion is really getting up there with the BWP remaining high. So this is what I was talking about. Whenever you see the upper second lost on very high, very, very aggressive expansion like this, when the upper second is lost, or it passes price action due to sideways price action, but the price action remains above the upper first, especially in and around support resistance zones, then when it sweeps past it, it gives you, even though we see cool down on BBWP 99.2 under the moving average there at 99.84, we still have, price still has, rather, not we, but Bitcoin still has the opportunity to go test those upper bands. And if it starts to get above the upper second, we would see BWP go back to 100. But, that's the moving average would have to get up there as well, or it would need to close above the moving average. So in this case, we could see price volatility mean reversion, which means Bitcoin's going sideways in this case, and or back towards the basis on the 12-hour here. But because it is trading above that upper first, the upper second and upper third are very much in play. And you might be thinking, like, why the upper third? Usually you don't call that out. When you have volatility this high, this upper second, upper third zone is a likely target if it starts to break out above its local highs here. So upper second coming in just below the monthly there at 64,430 to around that monthly swing high at 65K. And of course, the upper third lining up with the all-time high there at $69,000. If Bitcoin did head down again below the monthly at 61,350, I would keep an eye on the upper first here, which is coming in at right around 59,860K or so. Yeah, to the actual monthly here at 58.8. Below there, then we're looking at, not much until the basis at mid $50,000 region, which is a daily close open zone between $54,000 $55,000, slightly below there. And then, of course, below there, we look back to around 53, and then back into these monthlies at around 50,800 to 51.8, maybe even 50K even. But right now, it looks really good. It does look as though it's putting a high on volume, but that doesn't mean too much when things are kicking off in a bullish fashion like this and still trading above the upper first standard deviation. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and take a look at the taker buy sell ratio, and then we're going to get into some of the longer term time frame stuff. So we're at about equilibrium here, just kind of oscillating on the daily underneath the midline here at 0.985. Looks good. Did, of course, on the highs and on the way up, start really pushing this into the 1.1 region, or 1.08. And what did I tell you? Usually below around 1.08 to like 1.15 is where you're going to start seeing, the other side come in. In this case, bulls were dominating the order books on this side of things, and then bears picked it up, and or bulls started taking profit, and bears started heading in. And we haven't seen anything really extreme to the downside here. The most extreme read that we've seen on a close was back here on the actual prior low. So that was our 38.5 tap on the daily, I believe, right? That was February 22nd. And no, so that would have been the tap actually into that was all the way back here. My apologies. So February 22nd was the weekly zone that it held before moving up. All right. Let's go ahead and glance at the monthly here. I guess we could actually, before moving on, we could look at the daily BBWP. It is still cooking. Looks good, meaning that upside is more likely than not. There might be volatility in between and the lower term timeframes, and maybe even on the daily itself, but to the downside. But in this case, this is still preserving the possibility of upside. And of course, if Bitcoin is trading closing candles above the upper second, the all-time high zone just above us is well in play. All right. Even if it gets past, if the upper second, Bitcoin goes sideways, maybe it doesn't breach the highs here. It's looking very much like it wants to, but that doesn't mean it's going to. But let's say it goes sideways, it closes like this. So we've got our inside bars here. Upper second gets above price action as long as Bitcoin's above the upper first. It's going to be around the highs into the all-time high zone. So that is looking very good. The momentum on the daily is still pointed up. 60,730 is going to be the pivot. And that is about all I got for you. The basis being above the September of 2021 weekly swing high at 53 is a very bullish thing as well. So let's go ahead and check on the monthly here. The monthly is now, because of the daily, it's trading above the prior closing all-time high. And, we did not see the all-time high get closed above for the monthly. There is that opportunity this month, especially if Bitcoin is trading and closing daily candles above $56,000. And below there, we start looking into support resistance, one level at a time, whether it's, 53 to 50,800. I would say even number there would be on a close, probably dropping 50 would send things back to the next monthly level at 47 to 45.5. And then just below there, we have the upper first at 43,500 right now. As it stands, though, this looks like it wants to hit the upper third. Typically, we get acceleration in this stage. When you see the first closures above the upper third standard deviation on the monthly, we're going to go back and do a little bit of history here. We're going to get rid of that because we're going to be moving on a lot around the chart. We're also going to get rid of support and resistance. All right, so what you can observe here is every time Bitcoin has closed above the upper third standard deviation, it may test down in the next monthly candle, but it usually accelerates past and continues for an extended period of time. This is the first monthly candle to close outside of, or in this case, above the upper second and third standard deviations of the Bollinger Bands. And what we have seen in the past is that, this is pretty much the run, right? So typically the next month you get a nice big candle above that area again, and you might start to then see wicks above with closures, but giant wicks as volatility increases. We got another one over here. So realistically, we had post closure above the upper second, upper third. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 candles outside of that upper third standard deviation. So a good 4-month run to the upside from the monthly. And, we can observe that this is very much the case as Bitcoin has had quite a lot of expansion outside of those zones. Now, this was coming off of that compression. I don't think we're going to see something like what we saw back in 2016 into 2017, but you never know how crazy things are going to get, right? In this case, that would be that it just walked up the upper third without closing above it, but then the next closure above it closed above, swung back down to the upper first, get another closure above. This was an extended run after the bear market lower high was taken out, and then the actual all-time high taken out as well. The very next candle did close above the upper second and third, but this compression to expansion was something to behold back then. And we did not quite get a nice big pinch in the bands. We have a pinch in the bands, but it wasn't as prolonged. I mean, in terms of time frame, it probably was, but in terms of band time frame, it was not. As the bands were still populating for that area. This is beautiful. It does look as though it wants to go for the all-time high and higher this month. I think things are just now starting to get rolling in that regard. So I would not be bearish for big downside moves. I think that we are not necessarily entering up-only mode, but it's certainly, there is plenty of price movement to trade, but it's definitely biased towards the upside, and will remain that way for an extended period of time, especially when you look at BBWP liftoff like this. This is your confirmation that the bull market and mania phase is pretty much already here, and once the rest of the world catches on, normal everyday people, then you're going to see this absolutely go crazy. And then we'll probably see some exiting happening, which might mark the top, and we'll get to that kind of stuff. But in terms of time frame, we do have two very important closures coming up this month just prior to the halving. And let's go ahead and take a look at Stoke here on the monthly, which for some reason lately, when I go to the monthly, the indicator's getting all squished down. So give me a moment. All right, there we go. So I had mentioned, the biggest moves occur in the overbought and oversold zones, especially on the longer term timeframes. Bitcoin's monthly is well in the overbought zone now. We've seen some pretty massive moves off of the lows, 58,900, so right around that monthly below us, from the first high in March of 2021 in September timeframe. We saw that, right, it was September if I remember correctly. That was April. What am I talking about? September. That was April, so that was March into April. I don't know what I'm talking about. But that is the zone to hold for the pivot. But even if we see an initial cross down and then a cross back up, it can hang on the highs here, especially considering expansion. So looks good. I have no problem with this. But we do need to talk a little bit about the 2-month and quarterly, because this is going to be a fun one. Let's go ahead and actually jump over to the index chart, because we do need some perspective on the longer term time frames from a longer chart here. And that is that, Bitcoin has the chance to go above the upper second standard deviation, possibly by close this month. Now, the upper second is right in the thick of the wicks up here at the all-time highs. It's at 67,170. So, of course, taking out the all-time high there at 69K does give us the bias towards expansion. Now, I've seen a lot of pretty shallow targets. I don't know if they're overall targets that people are putting out there, but I even have some daily and under shallow targets above the all-time high. But when we get expansion on the 2-month time frame, I mean, just look at what we end up seeing. We got the shotgun through it last cycle. So it just lifted off right through it and the all-time high in one 2-month candle. So this 2-month candle is going to be closing, or no, this is the close open. I'm sorry. I was a close open on the 2-month. What the hell was I thinking? We have 2 months to go, and it's the quarterly that's more important. But I did want to note that during the 2-month candle, if we do see Bitcoin start closing above the upper second, we have the chance to paint a giant candle like this from expansion. I did want you to note where the upper third was. Typically, what you will see is the same thing that we see on the monthly, is that we get a big old candle above the upper second and third, and then we get a couple more after that, depending on the length of the cycle. I do think that we are in lengthening cycle territory. I know that people vehemently disagree with that, but I mean, if you really want to go a cycle theory, Bitcoin's only ever been in one cycle, and that's up only. But in this case, I think the 4-year cycle is broken, especially if we break the all-time high before the halving. The halving having less and less impact on the price, other than to restrict supply further and send things more parabolic. And in this case, if we start to see closures above the upper second and third, we're going to start seeing some expansion to some much deeper targets. So, I mean, we've done this a few times. But if you pull a fib extension, we're definitely looking around $100,000 to $128,000. I'm seeing like cycle tops coming in at like 88, and it's like weird. Like maybe a top on the daily for a while. Sure. Maybe a massive drawdown from there. Sure. But an actual all-time high coming in there would be extremely uncharacteristic. So looks very good. Let's look at the expansion of BBWP. It is now up over the moving average, and it's just getting started. This thing is just getting started. Now, granted, it started with very high volatility because of the way things listed. And then what you're looking for is that volatility to continue to cool down. And we had our lowest point back in 2020, right? Which means that we're pretty much in a normalized volatility cycle now, which means that this is really getting started. This is just barely getting started on the 2 month. Now, could it just go for a couple of closures like it did last time from March of 2020 to March of 2021? Absolutely. But let's go ahead and finish up with the 2 month here, and I'm going to show you the 3 month, because the 2 month is pivoted at 28,700, right? It's upside stoke, expansion above the upper first. The last criteria is just getting above the upper second standard deviation at 67,200 or so, taking out the high, and then it's go time, right? So this is pre run up, right? We are still in the pre run up phase. Remember, everybody got excited after 20K back in 2020. People were doubting it heading into 20K, and it was even touching that area on the daily, and like, it's going to fall apart. And, if you just got in 2020, for instance, then you haven't really experienced what that phase is from beginning to end, and now you have. And it's been a massive run since the lows. We've been in a bull market, and then they're just going to call it a bull market after the all-time high. Like, look, it's the bull market. No, it's literally the bull run. We've been in a bull market for Bitcoin on even a quarterly time frame since October of 2023. So coming into the end of the year, once we came into the end of the year that way, it was already bull market, right? And in this case, we're looking at a possible closure above the upper second standard deviation on the quarterly, which is closing this month. We've got a stoke cross to the upside. 26,475 is the momentum pivot. And we haven't seen the same bottoming action like we have on the 2 month for BBWP, but you can see the BBWP impulses have gotten weaker over time, and over subsequent quarterlies and subsequent cycles of the quarterly to the upside and then mean reversion back to the downside. And I do say mean reversion because this is all just mean reversion back to the basis. All right. So, you can call it 4-year cycles between it, and you can measure things out in any way you want to fit your theory. And yes, the halving did have a big impact on price prior, and I do think that we are front running the halving right now. A lot of that is because of supply restriction, and this was something that was always going to happen with Bitcoin, because that's the point of it. Is it restricts supply over time, and then the more popular it gets and the bigger it gets in terms of the global scale of holders, then the more and more restricted that supply becomes, thus parabolic price action over the long haul. And in this case, this is likely where we could potentially see some of those crazy targets. Remember some of those crazy targets from 2020 into 2021? You had some at 150, and we're likely going to hit, at minimum, in my opinion, the low, 100 to 125, possibly 130 area at minimum. Yes, I'm giving it a wide berth because what I'm going to tell you next is we could see violent corrections from those areas and then still go on to hit some of those deeper targets people had years ago at 250K. We could. It's very, very possible, especially with the supply restriction and the fact that ETFs are just hoovering up Bitcoin at an unprecedented rate, to the point where what you do need to understand about that is, everybody's, oh, they're just going to sell it back onto the market. When they go and they do redemptions, all that Bitcoin's going to hit the market and everybody's going to be wrecked. And, sure. Here's the thing, though. They are just getting started with their ad campaigns. I mean, like they're pushing it hard right now, but they're just kind of, flipping the switch at this very moment. It was just January that these things launched. So to think that, they're going to hold like a quarterly type of a view or just a yearly type of a view on this stuff is absolutely silly. They're when you're allocating 1 to 3% of a portfolio and your AUM portfolio, meaning that for your customers, you're going to only increase allocation over time, right? And they have not even started. Like they're not even at 1 or 3% of the allocations, not even close. So just understand that this could go and go and go, and we could get into macro parabolic phases that have mini bear markets. I mean, we basically we're right about on time for the bear market lows to hit the bull run. The bull run is early, heading towards the all-time high, but it has not broken it just yet. When we get around the halving, if it's not broken by then we have some other things to talk about, maybe larger corrections into the halving or something like that. But as it stands right now, things look absolutely fantastic. And there are crazy, crazy price targets out there to the upside that I don't necessarily think will happen this cycle, meaning $1 million. And there's still guys stuck to that. And it's not a technical area, so I'm just not going to even entertain it. But there are people who will tell you that they believe that this cycle, this particular cycle that we're in, is a lengthening cycle that started at the bear market bottom of 2018. And part of the reason for that is because of the flu, the bad, I can't say the word, but you know what I'm talking about. The virus that was not computer-like, that took everything back to the basis again, which, I mean, everybody was calling this like, oh, it was a black swan event, but it really wasn't. I've shown you this many, many times. The weekly was in a downtrend. Like pure and simple, like it was in a downtrend, and if it broke those levels, it was going to head down. There was nothing black swan about it. You could see it coming well ahead of time. So, but if the contention is that this is one big structure that we're going to break out of, then, the 1618's up there, and that's typically an area to hit, is around the 1618 on log scale here. 1414 on linear typically. 1618 on linear and 1414 on log. Then you're looking at somewhere around $250,000, right? With a minimum area around 160. So 150, 160 is fairly conservative, to be quite honest, for even the other structure that we got here, which is the current drawdown. The 1414 is at 130,000. 1272 is at 100. 1618's up there at 173 to 1786, coming into that 200K area and low 200K area. Bitcoin can really, really go, and it's not out of the ordinary to see that. So from the last cycle lows, though, it would not be out of the ordinary to see it hit the 1414. And I mean, if you would like to see a little bit more, we can do this. We'll have to go back here and kind of observe how things have acted in the past. We didn't have this as this wasn't really a bear market, but you can measure it if you like. We can go through and have some fun with fibs today. And you can see that, usually, from the very inception, it's going to be a little goofy. But essentially, You have the 1272 has been holding things down from its very, very parabolic takeoff. And then you would have what I would call a sideways and up compression over the years, which could lead to that could lead to that $1 million price that many are speculating about. And by the way, this is one of the ways that they're getting there is because of the structure. And that is a little unrealistic because that's not technical. You're not going to find, they're just purely measuring structure and then going off of narrative. But, when you take, for instance, the run up from the lows in 15, right? And then you pull a fib log scale, you can see that where did things top out at? The 1272. So this was 2017 to the 2015 lows. The 1272 was the big area to pay attention to the top side. Didn't quite hit it. 618 was the support to the downside, right? So we are doing something different. There was some decent fibs that we could pull. So we take the bear market bottom. We see that the 618 did not hold up. In fact, it rejected and we went down to the 50%. 1272 is at about 160. So 150 would make sense, right? And that just so happens to be the same kind of generalized area that I would be looking if things did not respect the 1272 and 1414. You could see a swing above it towards that 1618. It's a little bit of fun with fibs, and there are a few different theories that you can derive from this. From the drawdown in 17 into 18 at the lows. The 1618 is right where we are at, around $62,000. It was hit, right? So, shallow would be the 1212 or 1272 rather, and the 1414. More realistic is that we head for that 1618. So when you pull the bear market structure back, we've typically landed on that 1618 to the top side. So it's not out of the question, and even more is not out of the question after that, because whole numbers, once you break them, they're tough to break again. It is very, very difficult to break back down from some of those whole numbers if they don't reject immediately. That's why many were surprised that 20K broke down to the 15.5. We were not here. We were very much well aware of what was going on. And I do expect things to buck the trend. Let's put it that way. And then, of course, the real excitement is the fact that this 6-month candle, which is going to be closing in 4 months from now. So we've got a June candle coming up, and I've alluded to this before. We've seen crosses up, but this was still populating. We have our first real cross back up, and after population, we did see the cross down back here, just after the highs coming into the lows. But we have our cross up, and we've got a beautiful structure. And this 6 month is a sideways and up compression. And you'll see that we've had, a year, 2 years, 2.5 years of bull market here, from 15 to 17. And then we had, a year and a half of a bull market from 18 to, if we were taking the first big green candle off the lows, we only had a year and a half. We had 2 years to a year and a half. And could this be it? That's one of the contentions. And I say, hell no. This thing has been in a macro compression, sideways and up compression for a long time. And this would be the first valid cross to the upside for volatility. in the context of that Bollinger Band compression. Now, the Bollinger Bands, BBWP is not measuring the Bollinger Bands themselves, but you'll see that it starts back here and about 16, because you got to get this is just straight up. So if it was to populate, it'd just be stuck to the red line up there at 100. And then we've gotten a bit of a cool down phase to a possible re-expansion phase. Now, again, this is a 6-month chart, meaning that a lot can happen inside of a 6-month candle. And this could very well be setting up for a giga run over time. And I do say over time. And I do want you to understand that. Realistically, fairly conservative targets on the monthly. We're looking at least at first, after breaking the all-time highs, I expect the daily area to get some tests around 70 to 75, probably closer to that fib that we had pulled at 72. If we take just this move up and we fib this out, we're looking at, we're looking at holding the 414. If we go 618, that's right around the highs, the first high from March of 2021 at just under 65,000. Then we start getting up into the 786, 888, and 2 spot. And we're looking somewhere around, again, the 1786 is at 68K, just below. So the 1618 and 1786 are right in that monthly overhead resistance at the all-time high zone, between 65 and 69. But above there, you got the 888 and the 2 spot from this particular move. Until this puts in an actual high and then a low, I got to measure this move that we're currently coming off of with the consolidation. But the 2 spots at 72. And I don't know if it would be, we would probably see a pullback, 70 to 75. I think we could possibly see an initial pullback into higher low structure. Doesn't rule out that it can't just go for the 272 up there, but it's got some fib levels ahead of it right in that overhead resistance. I could very easily see a pop up to 70 to 73, maybe even 75 before going and continuing on to that 272, 2414. And at that point, we would probably see a high on the daily and then a higher low on the daily, and then we can go from there. Now, that's provided Bitcoin starts trading up above the 618 at the first all-time high area at 65K. So, and I do really mean that we could actually see a giga run. And you got to keep everything in context. 6-month charts encompasses years, right? Which accounts for cycles within that 6-month chart. But one of the bigger things that I have, there's decreased volatility over time, but and Bitcoin has decreased volatility over time. And each and every bull market has significantly less returns. But we are also entering a different stage for Bitcoin where it's getting to the point where we're only just really seeing the mass adoption. Like, it's going to take a little while, but the ETFs through this bull market are going to keep hoovering up Bitcoin, right? And what that's going to do is get everybody else interested. And we're already seeing this. There's stories all over the United States, for instance. There's a lot of places, and there was a city hall, I believe, in Texas that installed Bitcoin mining equipment with, and it costs them nothing because of the way that their power arrangement is. It's utilizing, in some cases, the city can get a flat plan for power. So it might as well utilize the power that's being delivered to the building that you're paying for. So, they are able to mine Bitcoin. And part of the reason why they can do that is they can also secure it as well. So they can put it in their treasuries. And you're seeing a lot more of this. You're going to start seeing news about certain cities in California that are also doing this with mining equipment, holding Bitcoin in the treasury, as well as purchasing ETFs and holding ETFs in the treasury as well, which are going to be a little bit more liquid and easier to leverage against as well. So you're going to see a lot of that. And that narrative's going to really heat up. And when the media is screaming about the Bitcoin bull run, the hot market, and how high can it go, and people coming out with their on TV talking about $1 million a coin, that's when we got to start paying attention to large scale corrections that could lead to, miniature bear markets. But that's going to do it with my talk about Bitcoin today. I am not going to get too much into anything else today. I am exhausted. I was engaged in absolute degeneracy in the markets yesterday with some of you, in fact. And I got very tired doing so because I was up very early trading and still going through all my trading processes. Yeah, Bitcoin looks really good, guys. Up is the name of the game. Will it provide, a possible last minute entry for people to the upside? Who knows? It likes to run away from that stuff. And why? It's not because there's a market maker that decides it. It's because people are impatient. I'm like, I'm going to hit the green button over and over and over again every day until this thing is at its high, and I'll still keep hitting the green button all the way down to its low. That's the mentality of many people. Because 4 different people on crypto Twitter and crypto YouTube says $1 million is possible. Did you hear that Landy guy? He's a super small YouTuber who is not really a YouTuber. He's just a trader who talks on YouTube. And you can agree or disagree with him. He doesn't really care if you follow him or not. But he hopes that his information helps you. He said $1 million as well, without providing any context, right? Like, I think that's highly unrealistic unless we do see a complete complete collapse of the US dollar in, the next year or so. Which, to be fair, could happen, but I doubt it. Not coming into an election. If anything, they, depending on who wins, they let things all fall apart, right? I mean, things will always fall. Things are going to fall apart. Fiat system's going to fall apart eventually. But trying to time that for like, hey, we're going to get $1 million this year, sir, ma'am, we're trading at 62,500. $1 million is a long ways away, and that would take up the amount of liquidity that would need to be pushed into Bitcoin to do that is absolutely not mathematically possible right now. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it for me on Bitcoin today. And we are not going to look at anything else today because I'm exhausted. I do want to look in the chat, though. I'm going to turn on the tunes here. And you see, I'm having trouble. I was stumbling through who watched yesterday's video? Who watched the video I uploaded for the monthly close yesterday? And this is, I covered a lot of what I already covered in that video here, but this video is for you guys to chat with me and hang out and ask questions and stuff like that. So I will open this up to questions today. And I don't really want to look at a bunch of coins unless you have some kind of burning question about a specific coin. But don't ask me when it's going to moon. Everything's going to moon soon. How high can it go? It can go very high. But let me go ahead and turn on the tunes. I'm going to peruse the chats here and see what you got to say. What are you feeling like here? Let's see. What are we going to do? Let's do this song, whatever this song was that was playing. Oh God, I turned it up way too loud. Sorry. It's supposed to just be slightly in the background, and I just freaking hammered that thing. See, this is how you know I'm tired. All right. All right, let me look in here. Hello, Sam. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Don. We've got Bobby in here. We've got Roka in here. We've got Shubham. Shubham? Shubham in here. Are you new? Or have you been around for a little while? Message redacted. What happened? Let's see. Oh, we've got, I said hi to Cheryl. We've got a few others here. Anyway, let's go ahead and look through the chats here. And I did hear, or I did see that Mr. Shubham had asked if I needed a thumbnail designer. I mean, not really. I'm not looking to become a YouTube star. But yeah, if you are good, you can always hit me up on Twitter and you can have a discussion with me. Let's see. That was the mess. Oh, he must have, because we don't have mods here, so he must have pulled this message, which is fine. He didn't have to. I'm not gonna kick anybody out for asking questions. Let's see. I heard that last bull run. Oh, 400,000. Yeah, you did hear that last bull run. There was some crazy upside targets. Well, Elliott wave theory tells me that it should hit $5 million trillion. And it's like, dude, that's not even close to what Elliott wave theory is showing you. Like, they just say random shit. Like, the Landy volatility expansion Elliott wave Johnson 5000 theory tells me that it should go to $500 billion trillion in 6 months. So buy now. Except not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's going to go so high, you should buy my shitcoin that I'm shilling. Totally won't dump it on you. No, my thumbnails are garbage. I know that. I spend all of like 5 minutes on them, and like thumbnails are the thing that get eyeballs and people to click on your content. I just don't care. I'm not in this to be a YouTube guy. I'm in this just to share my thoughts on Bitcoin and help traders learn how to trade by understanding technical analysis. But you know, if anybody ever wanted to help out with thumbnails, you're more than welcome. We can grow it, get our information out to more people. I don't care. It's all free info. All right, let's look. Bobby says, one bull flag after another on the quarterly. Yes, it is, basically. Bobby says, no one understands fibs. They don't work anyway. Yeah, I best just play my M pivots, right? Oh, wait, how are those derived? Let's think about this for a second. My M pivots and S pivots, just because how are they derived? What's the math behind them? Because they're not just swing highs and lows or closing highs and lows. Gotta use some brain power on that one. And also Fibonacci math absolutely works, because in the context of a chart, it's literally percentages. So if you're looking at the 50% fib, after you pull a fib from high to low, it's 50% drawdown from that high, 50% from that low of where you pulled it. Wow, mind blown. Oh my God. So anyone that says that fibs don't work, probably pulling them wrong, and has come up with really crazy theories about how you should use them, when it's really just simple percentages. Like, there's no reason to overcomplicate things. Now, fibs are used in very specific ways in Elliott wave theory, and there are rules, so you do need to adhere to those rules when you are counting waves. Other than that, just have fun. Fun with fibs. You'll find confluences all over the place, just so you know. Look at that 15-minute. Hey, what did I tell you? Trades back above the high there at 62,480. We're going to change trend, so we got a nice uptrend going. Just talked about this earlier, right at the beginning of the stream. All right. Meme magic time. Yep. No plebs. Plebs are any kind of cryptocurrency holder, but typically referred to plebs as smaller Bitcoin holders. It's okay. The plebs are coming. A lot of plebs are already here. Pleb is usually a more sophisticated, I guess you could call it, or more knowledgeable Bitcoin holder. Although that's been used for everything now. Everybody's a pleb now. New guy, pleb. Like, no, not really. If they don't know their shit, you're kind of just overusing the term. They should know at least at the minimum, like how to custody their own Bitcoin or something. Cheryl loves Giga runs. The only time I don't like Giga runs is when I'm not close to a bathroom. Other than that, Giga runs are awesome. Really cleans the system out, and in this case, could clean out the fiat system, suck it all up into Bitcoin. Yeah, you didn't think I could tie that back together, did you? There's a joke in there. All right. Thinking of getting a lottery miner. Lottery miners are great to learn and run your own shit. Excuse my language. Run your own stuff. You should get a lottery miner. This is how you can actually run a node. I mean, shit, you can run a Raspberry Pi node. The fact of the matter is you can aggregate your own UTXOs and like all kinds of stuff for Bitcoin. And as Core gets updated, or if you want to join the Knots pool or something, if you hate regular mining and you want to side with the filter guys, fine, you can still do that. And you can. I have a couple miners actually in running Knots and Ocean Pool. I don't mind, even though I don't agree with Luke. And then on the other side of things, lottery mining with public pool. Nothing wrong with that. Push out some hashes, might actually get something, right? And you'll get dust, UTXO dust, transaction dust here and there. You're not in it to mine Bitcoin and make money from mining Bitcoin. When you hit, you mine a block, just so you know. I've done it on a lottery miner, and I was absolutely dumbfounded. So, and it is like hitting the lottery, by the way. But you enter the lottery every single block. You might have a 1 in 300 million or something, or 300 billion or 3 billion chance. You gotta, I don't know, the odds are better than you actually winning the lotto, unless you found the exploit. Like those guys who exploited the lottery by the roll-up lottery stuff. Whenever the Powerball roll-up, when nobody won, it would keep going, and then they figured out the math for it and were able to hit it by buying all the tickets. And then the dude started his own ring, and I think there's a movie about it too, but it's a true story. And I think the true story is actually more interesting than whatever movie they made. The BitAxe miners pull, I think it's 15 to 20 watts or something. Yeah, you'd have to go look at the specs on it. I don't remember. But nerd miners don't pull anything. I think I could power a nerd miner off a potato. Let's look here. Ordinal degeneracy. Oh yeah. So I'm still reading back a little bit. Welcome to the dark side. Bro, I've lived on the dark side for a long time. I don't tell you guys about all of my degeneracy in the markets because that would just be bad form. Sure, I'll join us on the dark side. Let's see. 1 million before having done says. Oh god, that'd be hilarious. Balaji says said last March 2023 it would go Giga Rocket to 1 million. Yeah, and he, so the bet that he had though was not that Bitcoin was going to go to 1 million. See, this is so misconstrued. He's leaned into it since then because it gave him so many followers. What he actually did is he made $1 million bet that Bitcoin was going to be in a super cycle. This turned into, he bet that Bitcoin was going to go to $1 million, and he immediately, because it was such a firestorm online, he leaned into it. That wasn't what was originally said, and it's kind of hilarious and brilliant that he did that, because now he's the Bitcoin to $1 million guy. And he's always been aggressive with it, right? And he's mentioned $1 million in the past, but that wasn't what the bet was. The bet was $1 million bet. And then it somehow morphed into, we pull a clip of him saying that Bitcoin could potentially go to $1 million from like in the past. And we link it up with what's going on now. And he's like, you know what? We're just going to lean into that shit. Brilliant marketing. And then he just doubled down on it, even though that's not what was originally bet. Funny though. I do enjoy that kind of stuff. Roka says, dude's dissing your thumbnail game. I don't care. No, I know my thumbnails are garbage. I don't put time into them, nor am I a designer of any sort. And I don't think that's the way he meant it. A little self-promotion, it's fine. I don't care. It's all good. Couldn't imagine getting a block. It feels like winning the lottery for sure. So all of a sudden you got these Bitcoins and you're like, whoa, this is amazing. Although that reward will be halved. It's so rare that, but there has been many instances. There was a nerd miner that got a, so I didn't get the full block, but it somehow got the block reward, like half the block reward, even though it was solo mining. Or no, maybe it wasn't a nerd miner, it was an F. Oh man, now I can't think of it. It's got a Flexi something. No, it wasn't a nerd miner, it was something else. I would actually have to go look it up. But yeah, there's been a few reports, and then you can go verified on chain that who got that block, and it was actually like, no, homeboy was not lying. What block did I get? I don't remember. It was a little while ago. Yeah, I also mine, so like for profit. So it's just gonna get more difficult, right? Like unless you're paying zero in power, it gets very, very difficult. For at home, if you're running larger machines, any kind of ant miners, and you know, technology will advance and things will become, you know, there's going to be more announcements, and you're going to see faster machines coming, and more power efficient machines coming to market very quickly. Yeah, I mean, I can look back at Yeah, no, it's still, we're not getting any kind of move up. A move past the one line here would mean that, you know, lift in the offer is what's happening if you want to use insider terms. But, you know, it's bids will be picking up aggressively and taking things higher. Something I would still be aware of, or was aware of, is that pullback there that we got. It was just a shorter term time frame pullback, but I want to just quickly check. Yeah, it's a consolidation, higher low consolidation at that. So pretty on open interest. Looks fine. No problems there. Who's holding the most open interest? You hope it's CME and not Binance, and it is. By quite a bit. Yeah, a lot of that has to do because it's the beginning of the month as well. Yeah. All right. Should I get into showing them how to be degenerate gamblers on the Bitcoin NFT marketplaces like you were telling me? Oh, okay. So I was telling a friend of mine about our escapades, Mr. Roca and Bobby, with some of the market yesterday. I should not expose the masses to that, so no, I'm not going to show that. Would it be considered market manipulation? No. It's what happens all the time. Somebody with enough money will sweep the floor and continue sweeping the floor to keep price up, and then relisting higher, which is bringing the floor price up. That's not... Is it, you know, a little bit broken? Possibly, when you're in smaller marketplaces. Yeah. With lower liquidity. Right now, Bitcoin has, you know, on all these NFT ordinals, there is a lot lower liquidity, so it's easier to do. It was very easy in the early days of ETH NFTs to do that as well, but got harder over time. No, when you see somebody change their profile picture to an NFT, you know they're a bag holder. They were the last guy out the door. Yep, that's why they're holding. It'll come back, boys. No, that's the rules. Them's the rules. If you're the bag holder, you gotta profile picture that shit. Yep, that's why you saw so many mutants and like Bored Apes. They still are Bored Apes. Why? Because good luck getting back to those prices. I mean, I could go to Fiverr and get somebody to make me some bomb-ass art for like $150 for a profile picture. And that's just... that's just, you know, it's silly to me, but to each their own. Roka says, why should we not be allowed to create ordinal FOMO? Just what Wall Street does with their ETFs. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about methodologies of sweeping the floor on ordinals and to push the price up. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of that. A lot of people will do it to their own projects, though. Understand that. Right? Like, I launch a project. I want it to hit a certain price. We launch it. I freaking fire up like 15 different wallets. And I start rotating the floor on the marketplace through those wallets. I mean, why not? You sweep the floor as they're selling it, and then they get paid, and you mark it up. It's just, when the hype dies down, somebody's left it as a bag holder holding much higher than the floor price as it starts to fall back. But these things will go in cycles, and it's all based on liquidity and opportunity. And whatever is, narrative. It's like lemmings. Like they'll go to the next one, and then they'll see like, okay, volume's dying down. I'm a bag holder here. Let me come over to this one and see what's going on. Okay, it finally came down in price, and then they start pumping it back up, and you start a cycle over and over and over again. Now, you can just do that for your own as well. Like, I could go in any NFT marketplace, and as long as I see that there's been historical volume, I just start sweeping the floor, depending on how big it is, how many profile pictures there are, and then just freaking sweep the floor and start listing higher and higher and higher, and the floor is going to get higher, and it's going to show volume on the marketplace, and then people are going to get interested, and then it's cyclical. It just starts building on itself. So, you just got to have a big enough account to do it. And some of you have big enough accounts to do it, but it is very risky, because you could just end up sweeping the floor and being a bag holder of all this garbage, which it happens all the time. So I'm not going to show how to do that, because if some of you are big enough to do that, I don't want you to miscalculate and end up bag holding an entire fucking collection of garbage that you'll have to literally offload at half the price or less. Yeah. Show says I have a $1 account. Yeah, I'm sure. What were you saying about Luna? You talking about Luna, the coin? Lunk? If by chance you mean that there's still bag holders left over from when they launched Lunk as like the replacement for the, we're going to make it classic. Here's Luna Classic. And that shit just bombed, and it's been trading sideways in a compressing range for a long time, and might be pumping when you zoom out and realize that there's literally bag holders from that you cannot see on the chart. Because of the way they launched it. I forget, like it was direct redemption or something. I don't know. I helped kill Luna, so at least that's what I tell myself, because I shorted the tippy top of that and all the way down, and finding liquidity on the bottom was fucking stressful, because that trade was so large after literally riding that thing from, it was thousands of percentage gains. From 100 to 0. I mean, it was about 0. It was above 0, because otherwise you're not going to be able to close your trade. There's no liquidity. But people kept trying to fucking long into $1, just hoovering their freaking liquidity up. Like, dude, you're not going to get any of us out of this. Like, some of us who shorted the tippy top are like over $100 or whatever it was. It's our literal entry. And liquidity is just leaving. Some of you might have even been here when I explained that trade. We used to talk a lot about alt trading and stuff, but it's just alts are great and all, but everybody has a different alt that they like to trade, and alts all have opportunities on them. It doesn't matter which one, you're going to be able to find opportunities. Just, you make sure that you protect yourself by understanding what the project is and where it's being held and stuff like that, because there's also a lot of rug pulls still. You were a bag holder? You were a Luna bag holder? Did you hold that shit all the way to 0? Couldn't get out? Not even at $20 when it bounced a little bit? I remember they were really excited when it bounced to $20. I was like, make me money. I'm taking profit here, and then helped with the bounce. And then when it stopped taking profit, it freaking rocketed down again and again and again. And then everything, the wheels really fell off that thing quick. I know I live streamed some of it. There was another one that I got. You guys would have to remind me what it was, because I was trading the shit out of Luna. By the way, I traded that shit all the way up, and I was excited about it. Not the project, the price action, but when it hit the top, I was like, man, no, this needs to be shorted. This is way overdone. This goose is cooked. Short time. And I think I even said, like, I'm going to short this thing into dust. It's on one of my... You can go look for the stream. I have no idea when it was. But I even said my entry, and I posted my entry in one of our servers we had. And I was like, I'm entering right here. And shorted the freaking tippy top of that shit. I didn't know that was going to be the tippy top. And that was just a joke saying that I was going to short this thing into the dirt. Or into the ground, or whatever I said, when that thing really did go to zero. Like, hell yeah. I've only there's like another project that I shorted the shit out of. Some of you guys that were here at the time have to remind me what it was. But made bonkers amounts on that one too. Because prior to that, in the other cycle, I only got... I think I was late on one as I just jumped on the bandwagon. I think that was my first real hold it all the way till this thing goes to zero, and then pretend that you can get liquidity out of this damn thing. Like when I was taking profit, it was going way, like I was literally under $5. I started trying to aggressively close the position, but it was like closing out at 10. And then like price was still going to like $2 and $1, and then people tried to hold it up, and like I'm taking profit, and it was like kept coming out at like 8, 7, 11, 2, like it was all over the place. I didn't care because it was just a grab for liquidity at that point. Sure, trade Sol, and that's about it. Spot trade. Bitcoin. Well, if anything, you should be buying Bitcoin. You should, my opinion, not financial advice, you should hold Bitcoin, and you should hold a lot of it, as much as you can stand to hold. As much money as you can dedicate to holding Bitcoin, you should hold Bitcoin. And you're probably saying like, but jeez, this thing's like 3x off its lows or more, or, you know, 4x off its lows, whatever it is off the lows, with 15.5, 30,000, 60,000. Yeah, it's 4x off the lows. So why would you want anybody to back hold here? It's gonna, no, for the long term. You just want to keep collecting sats. You want all of the Satoshis that you can possibly get at any price, because your fiat is worth nothing. It's actually not even worth the paper it's printed on. The paper it's printed on is worth more, because you can wipe your ass with it. Oh, I'm sorry. Did the guy who the guy who's like really into helping you guys over there with TradFi just shit all over your precious Dixie dollars, your altcoin called USD? We need to get you out of that pair. The USD to USD pair, we got to get you out of that. Just convert the whole shop. That would be hilarious. No. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. You guys have a wonderful Friday. I do appreciate you hanging out with me for the casual live streams. I'm actually going to become a little bit more casual over time, because we worked hard during the bear market and the turnaround into the bull market. So we are we're gonna go cash. We're still gonna do analysis like what I did at the beginning. It's gonna be a little bit more casual going forward, a little bit more cursy, because a little bit more ranting, because there's time for it. When you get into these phases where it's just like, it's gonna, we're in the bull phase, it's gonna hold support. At some point, there's gonna be a big ass drawdown, but it's opportunity at this point. Only if it changes macro time frame structure does it really matter. And even then, oh man, I have a lot of confidence in Bitcoin right now, just as I have the entire time. But it's a little bit more relaxing when the green button is preferred over the red button, because nobody likes to see, even when you're in a short position and you're making money, it's exciting, but still the chart is depressing. Everybody likes green all the way around. It's exciting instead of depressing. So I need a beer after all the beer market stuff. Well, I mean, look, we've been in a bull market, not bull run. I mean, we're currently going to go into a mania phase bull run, but I mean, you can call it bull run, bull market, whatever you want, since 15 and a half. I mean, it really turned around when it regained the 25K region, and specifically breaking out of that larger form consolidation at around 30K or so, 28 to 31.8. It's pretty much, it was over from that point forward, and I told you guys that. It is now bull time. I mean, there was the possibility prior to that it could have come back down and tested around the lows, or retested the lows, but that went out the window as soon as that area was broken, 31.8 specifically. And remember how much I talked about 31.8. So I know, like, I don't get super excited like all these YouTubers and these other. I've just been in the market so long, I'm jaded. You become so focused on, like, this is just price action. This is just trading, and you become emotionally dead to it. It's still once in a while I get that, like, feeling like being a complete and utter degenerate on some of these ordinals markets. Kind of scratch that itch for a little bit, which kind of draws me into it, but I'm still like, It's tough to be excited when you're always playing the price action, right? You're excited about the price action itself, not necessarily the overall narrative. So I don't come across as being like this super excited guy, like, guys, it's ready, it's on, we're gonna get that bag, we're going to the moon, and then Mars, and then Jupiter, and wait a minute, maybe don't go to Jupiter. We're gonna pass Jupiter, and we're gonna go somebody's gonna get that joke. Roka, that one's for you. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me today. You all have a wonderful weekend. Please, whatever you do, stay safe, and of course, as always, trade safe. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world as well. We are going to wrap this up with the music in the outro. For those of you that like to revisit the charts and listen to some tunes, you are more than welcome to. We're going to leave this up for about 15 minutes after. We're going to roll right into the weekend. And you all have a wonderful night, in this case for Bobby. You need to get sleep. Being an absolute degen in these markets. But yeah, get that bag. Protect that bag. Have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out, guys and gals. Landy out.